and then we'll keep talking, and we will find out when Andrew can hear the stream. Oh, and I had to go get him earphones, don't I? I'll do that right after this.
Sounds good, Matt.
Shelly is virtual, and she's already in the space.
Yes.
Ali is virtual. Too virtual, too physical.
Yep. Virtual.
That's fun.
Sorry, Ibrahim is up on the stage. Well, actually, Ibrahim, they can see you, so wave.
Hey, nice to
Hello,
meet you.
Ibrahim.
Live.
Yeah,
What's
she's
the
talking. We'll be
frequency,
able to hear
Kenneth?
her here, but it's audio issue that we have to resolve.
Yep. Always.
Andrew, are you able to hear us on the stream? Turn the volume way up. It's not showing live yet? Are they not starting it? Oh, I wonder if they're not starting it until... Give me a moment.
It's funny when I'm in these other
All right,
platforms.
so I'm
and
going to get you earphones just to make sure you can continue to hear us. All right, so in Verbella, I'm going to let you guys know the stream can hear you. Feel free to enjoy your conversation.
Sounds good,
I'm going
Matt.
offline
and you know,
again. We'll start at 6:15ish. Well, we'll start exactly at 6:15. I'll be back on the microphone at about 6:10. Thanks, guys.
Okay, great. You notice he said Verbella because we used to be in Verbella. And although this is really, the parent company is Frame, so it's all part of the same thing. But anyway, it's very different. How many platforms have other people been in that have been interesting? I've definitely, I found VR chat during the pandemic times, and I still have a lot of people I know that do like it, but I had such a hard time with it in headset. I don't know if others have experienced VR chat before.
Yes, there was way back. Well, I say way back, several
Yeah.
years ago. Charlie
Yeah.
Fink had a virtual meeting platform tour where one evening we jumped into, I don't know, 8 or 10 different platforms, and we would meet through Zoom, and then we would jump into these various platforms. Verbella was one of them. It was interesting to see the features in different platforms back at that time.
I know, and AltSpace and all of the areas. So, and I think that they still, I don't know if that's his tour, but they do still do world hopping tours. And Julie and Karen and Sophia have gone to several, and some other of the XR women. So I haven't had the chance to do one of the tours, but I've heard it's really fun to do it all in one swoop like that.
That would be fun.
How about anybody in terms of their headset fatigue? Is that an issue?
Most of my teams work with mixed reality, so it's not as much of an issue there.
Yeah, and I guess that's the challenges are different. And at least you have the depth perception. Even that, though, it's interesting. I've used just a small amount of AR mixed, pass through glasses, and it's takes some getting used to, but it's a little less of a, I would think. I don't know. What was your opinion of that?
In virtual reality, I think it's gotten much better. In the early days, you definitely could feel it, but it's gotten so much lighter weight, and the visuals have changed so much that the things that used to bother me years ago are not an issue anymore. So it's good to see the way that it's progressing.
I agree. And also even just the spatialized voice is a wonderful thing.
Yes.
It's amazing how that, and it just adds to the experience, especially for entertainment related experiences. So much fun. I've a couple times gone to events in a platform called Nowhere. And maybe you've been there, but it's another one that's also free, open platform for anybody to create. And it's a great one because a lot like with Frame, where I can have my webcam on with my face, and it should show up above my head. I don't see it, but I think you can probably see it above my head. Anyway, the fact that you can have a Zoom-like experience, kind of like this one, have your own instance in nowhere with backdrops of the city or whatever. And again, all people need is a link. And it means just social things. If you want to watch a movie or you want to, hang out, there's just so many applications for it. So, yeah. I'm real interested tonight to hear a little bit about how you and others are using sort of the enterprise AR in that way, because that's super interesting to me and how that's developed over time. Yeah, so I'm curious about how that's unfolded in manufacturing.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey, and Tim was working with us on it for a good portion of that time, but it's matured and changed so much over time that it's fun to see what it's capable of now. And by fun, I guess I mean valuable. It's great when you can go in and see organizations complete tasks with, in less time and with fewer errors, and you start to really grasp how powerful it can be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's in the early days. I was concerned to take our findings to the high level leadership because it was just unbelievable, and ended up running the activities at 3 different sites at Kennedy Space Center and in Michoud and then in Denver, all 3 space manufacturing sites, before I took it to the leadership. And we saw the same numbers across all 3 sites. I'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm dying to know more about just that, because that sounds like I think I understand, but I'd love to hear more of it when we have this discussion. That's great. And was this specifically for a mixed reality project or initiative, or
yes, it was overlaying.
augmented?
Yeah, it was overlaying content on the physical structures with the data that the spacecraft technicians needed at the time.
Got it.
To cut down the time to complete the task by 90%. So, 30-day task taking 3 days, for example.
That kind of blows your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. And then I'm real interested to hear about Abraham's work in the safety and that whole industry, and how that's interacting and interfacing with the products that are being built and how those two things intersect. Because I know that's a huge barrier that manufacturing is facing too, is just the talent and the workforce for it. So that's exciting to look
It's
at.
really, I just talked with him for just a short period of time, and he'd mentioned some new laws have been applied January of this year, and it'll be interesting to see how companies react to that. But he had such a wealth of data.
Yeah, and it really can become, in a way, it's sort of an opportunity for there to be that use case that changes even traditionalists in terms of engaging these technologies, because of the fact that
Hello
with
and Frame,
any
just
added
giving you guys a
regulation
5-minute
or
warning.
rules. Hi, Matt. We hear you.
Just letting you know it's about 5 minutes till we get started. 5-minute warning.
Okay, sounds great. Shelley, where are you based?
I'm in Colorado, in Castle Rock, just south of Denver.
Nice. Nice.
And,
I miss
it's-
going
it's
to
fun.
Colorado. When I lived in Santa Fe, we would go up often. The
Yes,
various
it's-
towns, both this Denver and other smaller towns. It's so great up there.
It's that time of year where it could snow one day and then be 70
Yep.
degrees the next day. Yeah, we literally had that over this last week.
Yeah. I live in Portland, Maine, and we have sort of that, but hasn't quite reached 70 yet. So, but that's typical for here.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a pretty area.
Yeah, it's nice. But there's definitely that, having been in the Southwest for 20 years, you get really, I always used to say the sky and the mountains are my ocean.
Yep.
Welcome others in the room here. We may have two Victors, or they may be the same person with a different avatar, but welcome Victor and Victor. Feel free to unmute if you have a question for any of us. We're just here chatting, talking about the industry. We'll get started in a few minutes. And if you want to put anything in the chat, feel free. In the top left, you'll see that.
Victor, this is Victor from IQ3.
Hi, Victor. Welcome. I'm Caroline.
Yep, I joined. Thank you.
Good, Victor. I may call on you to add some of your experience.
Yeah, absolutely, please do.
What do you think of the platform frame, Ali, so far?
Yeah, no, it's easy to use. I think it's a great tool app for events, and no, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a very powerful tool.
Awesome.
And you know, I think that the whole WebXR technology is a game changer. And I think the more apps, the more usage there is, I think that's the way that you'll have an open environment. So I think this is great.
I agree. And the interoperability of that, and Shelley
Yes.
was talking a little bit ago
Mhm.
about tours across platforms. And it's nice to have, there are some organizations that are working
2
on
minutes.
the
Hello,
standards.
Caroline. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Matt. Hello.
All right, we're about to get started. So, Caroline, I'm going to remind you again, this time we have, again, a little bit of an audio glitch here. So I do need a little bit, like about a 1-2 second pause between when I talk to you guys and when I get the microphone to my MacBook's speaker so that the physical space here can hear you. We are at 6:15, so we are officially going to get started. Are we ready?
Let's go.
Can he mute that? Go ahead and record. All right. Cool. We're getting started. I should probably get Andrew some earphones, but I'll do that after I get through all of this presentation material. Hello. Welcome to The Next Evolution. Tonight we're going to be talking about immersive technology and manufacturing. I apologize in advance if I say marketing. I'm still going nuts from last week. But we're talking about immersive technology and manufacturing. We are here to talk about manufacturing. Whoa, where'd my mouse go? There it is. We're here to talk about manufacturing, and we've assembled this lovely panel of experts who are folks working in the manufacturing or the immersive technology industry supporting manufacturing. I've got a lot to get through here, so give me a second. Really quick, I am Matt Wren. I'm the founder of VR Chicago and The Next Evolution. We got this event started in 2017. My passion and expertise are primarily immersive technology, but it spans a lot of emerging technologies. And if you'd like to know more, please just come up and say hello to me afterwards, because I don't like talking about myself anymore beyond that. That said, this event is the next evolution. It is AWE Nite Chicago event series. It is now and always has been 100% free to attend. That does not mean it is free to produce, so please consider donating to support us. I will have some more to say about this towards the end of the event, but this QR code will lead to a donation page. We can talk more about that later. That said, the next evolution is also, you heard me mention, AWE Nite Chicago. There are more than 30 AWE Nites all over the world. Augmented World Expo, show of hands, who's familiar with Augmented World Expo? Do you guys know this event series? Okay, a few of you. AWE is coming up in June. It's the third week in June. And we have a lovely discount for anybody who wants to buy tickets through these AWE nights. That is the discount code. And you guys can't see this. Wait a second. I apologize. I need to go back for my slides a little bit. So I'm going to start over. So that's our presenters. This is me. Here's our donation link. Again, I'll put that up again later, so we can skip that now. AWE Night, there's more than 30 of them. Here is the discount code for anybody who wants to consider going to AWE this year. Apologies for that. The early bird tickets, I think, actually just ended. I'm supposed to say they're available now, but I think that just ended yesterday or today. But if they are still available, go to the website and check it out. That said, I also wanted to talk about AWE Academy, which is where people can attend online and live courses by the XR community for the XR community and beyond. They have a fundraising prep course for AR startups and a web AR course that's now available on demand. We would also like to thank our venue sponsor, who is 1871, and we actually have someone from our venue sponsor here. So she's going to come up and introduce 1871.
Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks for being here. Is it anyone's first time at 1871? Okay, we got a couple. Welcome back, everyone who's back. For those who don't know about us, 1871, we are an incubator. We're a nonprofit tech startup incubator and innovation hub. So what's special about us is we help companies grow from their very idea all the way to the growth phase, all the way to the corporate phase. So we're here from the very beginning. You've got an idea for an app all the way up until your corporate level. We've got really exciting stuff happening in the space. Our programming's growing. You may have noticed there was an event on the other side of our space tonight. Some of you might have been, but we've got a really cool event coming up next week as well. It's our Scale Up conference on Wednesday. Would love to see you guys there. I'll be there. Check us out, 1871.com. And thanks again for coming out to the VRAR event tonight.
Thank you, Lydia. Our other venue sponsor, because we're not always in this space, some months we actually go to another space in Chicago called 2112. 2112 is Chicago's creative technologies incubator. They are based out of Fort Knox Studio up by Montrose and Knox Avenue. Really cool place to check out. So give it a chance, go check them out if you get a chance to, and we'll probably see, I think our next event up there is in August. But that said, I also want to introduce our virtual host. Hey, Caroline, can you hear me?
I can, Matt. Welcome, everybody. Glad to be here tonight. My name is Caroline Dennis, and I'm a two-time tech startup founder. 2 Degrees works with founders and organizations, and I help them build actionable connections and alliances across the emerging technology spectrum. I am also, in addition to being involved with VRAR Chicago, I'm also part of the leadership team for XR Women, and I'll speak about that in a minute. And then I'm also part of a community called Symphony. We're a global incubator for sustainable smart cities. So let me also recognize XR Women. XR Women is an incredibly powerful community of about 700 plus women from 60 countries. We are really more than a community. We're a movement. We're building the industry to highlight women leaders, builders, creators, forging our way through this really incredibly emerging technology space. And please, if you don't know XR Women, we have a great LinkedIn page. We also do weekly events every Wednesday across a number of platforms, both here in Frame as well as Engage and Verbella and others. So thank you so much for our partners, XR Women. And tonight, as I've told some of you here, we're in a platform called Frame. We have been in a platform called Verbella. This is a really interesting platform, and I don't know that we have anybody from Frame here tonight to introduce it, but we're excited to be here. So I'll turn it right back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Caroline. No, I don't think we have anybody from Frame or Verbella, but they have been our virtual venue sponsor for going on several years now, basically since about July at the start of the pandemic. And Frame VR, which is the web version of the virtual space that you're seeing tonight, is actually owned by Verbella, which is an application-based version. That said, we also have to thank a lot of our community partners. We have a lot of great community partners who support this event, including Vanity, 2 Degrees, Independent Game Developers Association of Chicago, Mostly Misfits, Envision, and Patched Reality. I will pop this up again later. This QR code is one you might want to scan now. This is our NFT for our digital, this is our NFT for our digital giveaway that we do. I know I saw Jay in the room. Jay, raise your hand. So Jay's in our physical space. Jay is the person who won our giveaway this year. We will say it is I can't make any promises, but I will say it is very likely that we are going to give away a VR headset in December. We don't say which VR headset because frankly, a cooler one might come out between now and December. So the one that Jay got, if we had said at the beginning of January, if we had said in January 2023 what we were giving away, I don't believe the Quest 3 was out yet. So we wouldn't have been able to give him a Quest 3, which is what he won in December of last year. But this NFT is one way to get a ticket for the raffle. There are a couple other ways, namely donations and registering for the events and attending the event. So just if you've attended here tonight, if you've checked in, you're automatically entered. Grabbing the NFT, that's another entry. Lots of different ways to get that. All right, with that, I'll move on to the NFT. I've given everyone enough time to scan the QR code, and I will pop it up again later tonight. I also have to thank our presenting sponsor for the evening, who is UL Solutions. I'm actually not going to speak much about UL Solutions because we have Ibrahim joining the panel tonight, and so I'm sure he's going to talk all about UL Solutions. But we get to thank them for providing the food that we actually have this evening. With that said, we want to talk about manufacturing. So what's really cool about manufacturing, this event, every month we pick a new industry topic. This month we're talking about manufacturing and how immersive technology is affecting manufacturing. Manufacturing is one of the industries that has definitely been, I will say, on the early side of adoption. And there's a lot of different ways that manufacturing is currently using immersive technology. Everything from training frontline workers to production line support, where they're actually using it to support the people who are in the field maintaining manufacturing machinery, whether it's CNC machines or laser cutters or you name it. I won't get into a lot of detail there because I'll let our presenters go talk about that. But in addition to things like training and live support, there's also the ability to use immersive technology to plan how things are going to be built or how they're going to be produced, design products. Lots of different ways that immersive technology is currently affecting the manufacturing industry. And again, manufacturing, thankfully, has been one of the early adopters of the technology. So they're kind of far along, and I'm sure we'll probably hear the word digital twin several times tonight. But with that said, I'm going to just introduce our first presenter and let him come up here. So we have, again, our 4 presenters this evening. We have Andrew, Ali, Ibrahim, and Shelly. And our first presenter is Andrew. So Andrew, come on up to the stage and grab a microphone. Andrew is the manager of virtual and augmented reality department at CNH, which coordinates all XR work in support of product development, as well as consults with projects for marketing, sales, and training. Within his team are multiple dedicated VR labs to help with activities such as performing engineering design reviews, ergonomic analysis, manufacturing simulations, and virtual prototyping. All yours, Andrew.
Hello, you can all hear me? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here today. I'm happy to discuss about this topic. It's obviously very close to my heart. It's something that we work on kind of every day. So CNH Industrial, you may not know the company. We design heavy agriculture and construction vehicles. So think of tractors, combines, sprayers, things like that. But then we also design things like bulldozers, excavators, TLBs, so construction vehicles as well. So that is kind of our primary area of expertise. So my team fits within the product development organization. So my team is the virtual and augmented reality simulation department. So what our goal is to use XR technology, whether that's virtual reality, whether that's augmented reality, in order to create virtual prototypes that we can test with. that we could test our vehicles with. The biggest benefit being that these vehicles are very expensive to design and to build. One physical prototype of just one of our tractors can be millions of dollars pretty easily. Whereas if we can test early in the design process as much as possible, creating a realistic virtual prototype that someone can walk around, they can do maintenance on, they can sit in the cab, evaluate visibility, evaluate operator comfort, evaluate control placement. All that work saves us the requirement of doing physical prototypes, and each physical prototype reduced allows us to save money and to speed up the development process. So not only does it do that, but then it can also allow us to optimize the design. So we are able to go through more prototypes than we otherwise would be able to. If we were going to build physical prototypes of tractors, maybe we would build 2 or 3 prototypes before going to the final product. Whereas in an immersive space, we can be walking around 1,000 different versions of it before we build a final one. So we can really say that we optimize the product and get the best possible solution in the end. So we very much fit within that product development space, our team, but we also support efforts on in the manufacturing plants, as well as for training, as well as for marketing and sales and things like that. So on the manufacturing side, we support efforts for process development. So optimizing the manufacturing line for ergonomic comfort and for speed for speed for speed and for to get a better optimized efficiency. Couldn't think of the word efficiency. So we can replicate the manufacturing line in a virtual space and have someone walk through the development process. So that is kind of another one of our major things. So actually, maybe I should show the video. I probably should go that. It has a lot of examples of our work, and I can talk to any of those if need be. There's no audio, but so in here, you're going to see, I mean, in the beginning, it's the lab, and that's going to show some examples of the work we do. They're very quick examples, but using different types of technology in order to create these virtual prototypes and test. That could be assembly, like we looked at pulling things apart. It could also be things like this, looking at driving simulators, operating the vehicle in a virtual environment. This one's more augmented reality. It's using just a seat and then placing the entire virtual machine around the seat so we can evaluate reaching to controls, evaluate styling, evaluate how the operator is going to interact with the vehicle. And doing things like assembly at an early stage, in the design process. That's always important to us as well. And then this one's more kind of AR demonstration of the vehicle. So yeah, so just a lot of different kind of examples of the work we do. Everything we do is really about kind of optimizing the design and being able to test it early in the design process, and also being able to demonstrate it early in the design process. I mean, that's kind of where we are with this type of technology and why we use it. Anything else? No. and okay. Yeah. Well, then I think we'll have time for questions later. But thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. All right. At this point, I'm going to toss it to Caroline to make our next introduction.
Sure. Sounds good,
I don't
Matt.
know if it'll work to run a video, Caroline. I just saw your message. So let's not run the video. Let's try and just do the slides, please.
Okay, that's fine. Ali, would you like to join me up here at the stage and start the webcam up? And I would like to introduce Ali. Come on up. So Ali Mashant is the founder and CEO of IQ3 Connect. And he brings, sorry, I didn't know that you were there. There you are. He brings 20 years plus of experience in the development of 3D design and simulation software in the aerospace industry to the IQ3 Connect team. Software tools and methods he has developed are used in the aerospace industry and education in universities. He served as a consultant to major U.S. aerospace companies on advanced aircraft and propulsion projects. We're so thrilled to have you, Ali. Welcome. I think you might be muted.
Yeah, thank you for that kind introduction. Caroline. Really excited to be here and participate and contribute to this exciting event. And this is XR is we are kind of living it every day. And really thanks again to VR AR Chicago and Matt and everyone to give me this opportunity to speak. So yeah, my name is Ali. I'm the founder and CEO of IQ3 Connect. We are a startup based in Boston, and we're focused on really making. Uh, we're focused on enterprise and industrial applications, and really making XR as easy and scalable to use in the enterprise as possible. And we're working hard every day to solve some of the key challenges in this space. Next, please. Um, so hang on, let me. Yeah.
And if you
So
can't see, can you
yeah,
see the screen in the middle?
I,
Okay,
I
Ali.
I can now. Yeah, I zoomed
Okay,
in.
good. Excellent.
Frame is great. I just clicked on this button, and now I'm right in front of the screen here. So our vision is to really make this an easy tool to use for everyone. So we started in the industrial space, but really, even my son during COVID was able to use this. Created a learning workspace, put the NASA Mars rover in there, and shared a link in his Google Classroom. And now, from a flat screen sharing images or videos to an actual 3D spatial environment that he could share with his school, that was really exciting, and that was a really eye opener. And that really is kind of what we're passionate about, is making this a very open, inclusive platform, kind of almost like a new way of communicating. And again, my background is developed a lot of technologies around using 3D for simulation and design, and that's the foundation we are bringing to the IQ3 platform, and really solving some of the hardest challenges around making solving 3D XR issues in the enterprise space. And again, we are focused on really making this easy for everyone. Most of the XR things are very developer focused, but we are really trying to bring this down to as easy as possible, with the focus on industrial applications. Next. So some of the challenges that we've been working on over the years since we started the company and launched our initial products is to make the platform self-service. Very early on, we learned that in the enterprise space, um, people are always resource constrained and everybody's busy. And so if you really can't put something in the hands of everyday engineers, technicians, and users, it becomes very difficult to get beyond some initial tests and applications. So really we're focused on making this kind of a self-service capability, and that's a challenge in this space as well. uh, the second area, really important area, is things around using a web browser. So we're using WebXR technologies very much like Frame, but we have developed technologies and ways to process the 3D data so that you can use some very complex data in a web browser environment. So there are no applications and downloads, and that has a huge implication in the enterprise environment. We're also able to provide a completely automated way to take 3D content and turn it into a format that is very easy to stream into a web browser and then share and then use for various downstream applications. And that is again something that alleviates a lot of the challenges, data coming from different CAD systems, different data sources, and we have an abstraction layer that kind of takes care of that and allows users or organizations to even add new data formats themselves. The other thing is, security is always a big concern, and we have, also not solved all the problems, but we've solved many problems around security. Part of it is just, eliminating the need for an app. So a browser-based approach, takes care of a lot of those, a number of issues. The other is, coming up with an architecture that companies can deploy in their own environments. They can run it air-gapped and so on. So that takes away a lot of the pain from an IT perspective. It reduces the lift uh, to get this and scale it in an enterprise environment, especially for a company like a startup that has to deal with so many issues. Uh, the other challenges around devices. So, a number of devices, organizations, start with laptops or, tablets, and they want to be able to support various different devices. So the WebXR like environment really makes that extremely feasible. And that's another challenge area that WebXR is incredible, and there's been a tremendous progress in that space. And the third area is, I believe, for XR to really grow in an enterprise, as was mentioned earlier as well, is to integrate this into the business environment. And the more open the platform, we believe, the more easier it will be adopted, uh, and it can scale rather than a closed environment with a lot of proprietary a lot of proprietary things in there can really stymie the growth of XR in enterprise.
Ali, can I interrupt and just say if you can
Sure.
wrap up in the next
Yeah.
minute or so? Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're involved in a number of interesting applications. This is a fairly horizontal platform, and we started more on the VR, on the design side with collaboration. And, as Andrew mentioned, design, ergonomics, virtual build simulations. We are also into plants and retrofits where we can also read in LiDAR and scan data. And we've extended the platform to also support training, work instructions, and a number of training applications that are used in the industry, as well as in higher education and workforce development. And so what we're bringing is a platform that is very open. It's you can kind of build, you can become the creator yourself and really build all of these things. And we're happy to make the if anyone's interested, feel free to check out our website iq3connect.com, and we're happy to make things available to you. So with that, I'd like to again thank VRAR Chicago for this opportunity, and happy to address any questions, take any questions.
That's great, Ali. Thank you so much. And if you can just click off your webcam, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to have the questions after everybody gets to introduce themselves. So Matt, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. And our next presenter who's going to be joining us up at the stage, so that was Ali. And up next we have Ibrahim Jelani. He's going to join me and grab a microphone. Ibrahim Jelani has been with Ibrahim Jelani has been with UL Solutions for close to 19 years and is the Global Director for Consumer Technology. UL Solutions focuses on solving industry issues and advancing product safety, sustainability, and security. All yours, Ibrahim.
All right.
And you can look at the confidence monitor, which shows what's on the slides.
Sure.
And just let me know when you want the next slide.
As you can see from my profile pic to now, I joined a club, the BMB Club. Ball Men Are Beautiful Club. My kids are all about this too. They actually like to get the electric shaver. My 8-year-old daughter, she's a big fan of shaving my head, so it's a lot of fun in the house. All right, so why don't we switch the slides? Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of something that we work on at UL Solutions. I'm going to give you a little bit of understanding of UL first, and then I'm going to walk you through kind of some of the work that we do for industry. How do we help manufacturers? How do we help those end users that are using VR, AR in their daily lives? So I thought that, and by the way, when we first started on this standard, it was announced here back in 2019 with Matt. So this was a long time ago. That it's come full circle that in 1871, we told everybody we're going to work on this. And then the journey started back then. So go ahead, next slide. So background on me, I oversee quite a number of product categories for the company. Anything that's getting product safety certified. So if you think about product when it enters the market, when it's being sold in the US market or being sold in the Canadian market or any country, you name it, market, there are all kinds of regulations, all kinds of compliance you must meet. And one of those compliances is electric shock and fire safety. No one wants to buy something, or regulators and public safety officials don't want the public or consumers to buy things that could, ultimately cause a fire or explosion. So everything in buildings, usually the televisions, the lighting, the drywall, the roofing material, everything has standards that are defining what is the safety criteria for that product. That standard, then there's a choice whether it's going to be self-declared by the manufacturer as being met by, and the manufacturer saying that I met the standard and I did the checks internally, I have a quality assurance team, and that's how that gets done. Or I would go through a third party. And if it's going to go through the third party route, that's where UL comes into play. We are the third party that people call to go get certified and have their products meet the standard, the certification be granted by us as the third party, and then they go off and sell their product to the open market. So there will be a number of retailers like Walmart and those types around the world that will have procurement requirements that said that they need product safety. Some of the specific ones that I've been involved in are listed out there. It's both in terms of the standards and then the certification programs around those standards. So low carbon monoxide for portable generators, you can find those now at Ace Hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's. You'll find them that have been certified to that standard. Personal e-mobility devices, UL 2272. This is pretty interesting one. That's the hoverboard standard. So back in 2015, when the fires were happening from hoverboards, we published that document, and immediately the Consumer Product Safety Commission, which is the federal regulator for product safety, mandated it. So within 2 weeks of us publishing it, they had put out a notice that it was required. And then all the manufacturers in China, US, everywhere else in the world, we were working with them so that they could get evaluated, get tested, and then ultimately for those that could pass it, get certified. Very popular one that's talked about nowadays is 2849. That's the e-bike safety standard. We've been fortunate in Chicago that we have not had the fires and explosions like New York City. New York City has had 2021, 2022, 240 fires and 20 deaths specifically attributed to e-bikes. So their fire commissioner, Laura Kavanaugh of FDNY, she's gone very public, and you can look up lots of stories where she's talking about how come there was no federal requirement for these types of products before they entered into the country. And so there's been lots of talks in Washington, D.C. and other places and other cities about what should have been the safety requirement. And that standard 2849 and 2272, they're talked about a lot, and I get involved in a lot of those conversations as well. 3300 is I'm gonna move it. I'll move it quick. It's a robot document. It's getting published on Monday. That's the only reason why. That's the consumer commercial robots. So it's finally going from outline to standard. And at the bottom there, you can see 8400. That's the one I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today, which is the VR, AR, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality equipment safety standard. Go ahead. So what is the standard? What is it trying to do? Well, it's trying to reduce the risk of you going blind, you being exposed to any type of radiation, head impact, any type of neck moment issue. So lots of things are being checked that the product doesn't cause safety issues for the users. And so the whole point of the standard is to have a baseline safety that anyone who's making these pieces of equipment that we are seeing so many more people adopt, so many more people want to use, and not just use for entertainment, but to use it as their regular product, wear it for 2 hours to maybe 6-7 hours a day, that they have a product safety standard that is associated to it. Go ahead, next slide. And these links and everything you guys can pull up from the deck later. I mean, there's links that I put on there. I don't know how it gets distributed afterwards, but I'm pretty sure Matt will send something out so that you guys have access to that. Timeline of stuff here is just explaining what made us understand that there was a need for a safety standard. The biggest indicator that there was a need was that April 2019 date, where in a meeting that Meta, at the time Facebook, had with CPSC, it's a publicly logged document, CPSC told Meta, you don't have a safety standard for VR. You know, you're putting product on the market, but there is no safety standard. So you have the federal regulator telling one of the main manufacturers about that. And so that was the trigger for me to say, you know what, we're going to have to do this because it's needed. Go ahead to the next slide. More of the timeline. You guys can look into this later, but the big thing is that last year, almost a year ago to the day, the standard got published. So it took from 2019 to 2023 to get it done, and I'll explain why in the next slide. That's why. There's 36 organizations that have to come to a consensus. So when you make standards, it's not UL Solutions just doing something on our own, or our parent company, UL Standards and Engagement, which is a not-for-profit standard development company. We have to work with everybody in industry. We have to bring the best and brightest minds to the table and take part. And the bundle AR that's listed there, that's actually Matt. Now it's going to switch to his, on the next round, it'll switch to his next company name. But he's the voting member for that particular company. All the other companies listed there, some of those are manufacturers that you can recognize. Some of them are research firms. Some of them are hospitals. Stanford Medical was a very interesting one where they have a whole program called the Chariot program, which is how they use virtual reality for children to have them not be afraid or to be distracted basically when they're getting a procedure and not need anesthesia and just different things that they're trying to do to try to keep the children's minds active while they work on a procedure for the child. So at the end of this, when it got put into consensus, it took till April, and there was 2 or 3 times that it went for a vote. It finally passed its vote and got published by last April. Okay, next slide. You really want to get into the nitty-gritty of the whole journey. There's a couple of podcasts that the Everything VR AR podcast team recorded, and so those are the 2 dates of 2021, and the second was last April. And then the trade group, VR AR Association, also Immerse Global Summit, they put out a letter telling the manufacturers, we do want you to be certified to this standard. Okay, go ahead, next one. And on Consumer Product Safety Commission's website, which is, again, our consumer product safety authority at the federal level, they've already listed it as a voluntary standard. Typically, Consumer Product Safety Commission does not make standards mandatory for a manufacturer. But what they do is if an incident or somebody says that they had an injury, like they felt some pain in their eyes, or they had allergic contact dermatitis, or their neck had a problem, they're going to tell the manufacturer, show us your UL 8400 compliance. And because they're going to point to this website, they say, well, the standard's on there, show us your compliance. And if the manufacturer cannot prove that, good chance the products can get recalled. So if you're a manufacturer, this is kind of the check and balance. If you put a product on the market and you haven't done some regulatory work or worked with a third party, then that can happen. And that's consumer safety. Next slide. This is the workplace safety announcement. So this happened this year. It's a process when you work with the workplace safety authorities, OSHA, Occupational Safety Health Administration. They are actually one of the biggest drivers for third party to be involved with manufacturers. So the biggest reason why everything gets certified is because OSHA has a requirement since the 70s that said every electrical product in a building has to be certified before it's being put in front of a worker. So those enterprise deployments of AR, VR, this is a very important thing for everybody to know about, that equipment that's meant for deployment for an enterprise, if it's a CIO or an IT executive, you really don't want to take that risk of deploying a whole fleet of VR headsets or AR headsets unless you've made sure that they're certified. And we've already certified one company, that was Magic Leap. Their model ML2 is UL 8400 certified, and they're right now the only one that we've done so far. And that YouTube clip will take you to the announcement, which was last May, and Jonathan Reeves from Magic Leap, he'll explain what his product and why he went about getting certified. He was also another voting member. That's it. That's all I wanted to share with you. I think most of this group is software developers or in the IT field, but I wanted you to have this understanding of how the manufactured world is kind of being asked and also being tasked to say, meet safety standards to make the consumer and the public safer. So thank you.
Thank you, Ibrahim. And I'll answer the question now. I normally say this at the end, but you did ask how people are going to have access to it. This presentation will be published on the AWE page for this event after this event, we'll change like the link kind of currently links to the virtual environment or to the registration to get tickets to the live event. Once the event is over, we will link both to the presentation and to the video. So essentially this event page, you'll always be able to access the presentation afterwards, and you'll always be able to access the video. They'll always be there. But with that said, thank you, Ibrahim. He did give me a bunch of other slides that I'm just going to jump through really quick so that we can get to our next presenter, who is going to be introduced by Caroline.
Thanks so much, Matt. Shelley, I'd love to invite you up here to the stage, and also if you can turn on your webcam, and I'd like to introduce the infamous Shelley Peterson. So as we were talking about AWE, if you remember, Shelley Peterson is actually going to be one of the featured speakers this year. So if you're heading to that, then you want to make sure to check out her talk. She is definitely an XR pioneer and a thought leader. She has formerly was a Lockheed Martin Fellow of AI and Mixed Reality. She was a former Director of Technology at Microsoft, and she's been highlighted by CEO Satya Nadella for her work bringing mixed reality into aerospace to manufacture spacecraft. She's just been a notable authority in XR for over 20 years, and we're really excited to have you here, Shelley. Welcome, and take it away.
Thank you. It's great to join you in Colorado from here in Castle Rock, Colorado, or in Chicago, I'm sorry. I'll fill y'all in on a little secret. We haven't announced it yet, but my presentation at the AWE will be a fireside chat. One of the people that I'll have joining me is Ian Dawson. Has anyone in the room seen Iron Man? By show of hands. If you've seen the Iron Man movie and you're familiar with Jarvis, Ian is the executive producer of the Jarvis portion of Iron Man and has about 7 Emmys. It'll be fun to see him. But anyway, on to the important things here. I think that this is a fantastic event, and IT security and the requirements are very important to keep an eye on early if you're bringing this technology into a manufacturing space. Is there anyone in the room who's currently using this for manufacturing or XR technology, or anyone who's considering using it for XR technology for manufacturing?
I think we have some hands in the in-person space too.
Yes. So there's a number of things to take into consideration. If we go into the next slide, I'll show you some of the value points. So many organizations, of course, we don't want to deploy this type of technology just because. We want to deploy it for value. And here are some examples of the types of value that you can see in a space. You'll see different numbers from different organizations. This is kind of an average of what we see across various industry types for manufacturing and maintenance sustainment, the training that goes into manufacturing. In this case, these numbers are very representative of what we saw at Lockheed when I worked there building spacecraft. You see savings in the design, of course. You see savings in the manufacturing space and assembly. We were even hitting up to 90% touch labor reductions in that assembly and manufacturing space. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. Below are some additional considerations of areas where you may see significant savings that may not fit what you would normally think of for manufacturing spaces. And I believe this will be captured where you can go back and review some of the details. But in the interest of time, I'll go on to the next slide to talk about this assembly section. Typically see about 25 to 49% reductions. This will give you an idea of an example of that. The Air Force has what they call the OODA loop, the Observe, Orient, Decide, Act, which is a method to measure decision logic for commanders in the field, in operations. So a commander needs good data in order to make those decisions, and they need that information quickly. And so in the early days, back in 2016, a little bit earlier than that, we decided to use that same approach in measuring how our technicians made decisions. And what we found was that, especially in these types of environments, building spacecraft, they would spend about 50% of the time trying to figure out the task at hand, and the other 50% of the time performing the actual task. So observing the work instruction, which traditionally was, you know, a 2D representation, whether it's printed paper or a 2D screen, and then making that mental map to the 3D structure in the room, and then making sure that it was correct. Because the spacecraft, you want to get it absolutely correct. You can't fix it once it's launched. And then taking the action to perform the task. We knew that this type of technology could bring down the time significantly. Our leaders even referenced that, you know, observe, orient, decide portion as time to information, in the way that the technician thinks of the task at hand. This specific task was a running torque application where they're attaching the panel to Orion. This is the spacecraft that is going out around the moon and coming back. You may have seen that launch recently, and they'll be launching another one soon. There's different colors that are used for the different types of fasteners that they're using to affix this panel to the structure. This is the forward bay cover on the structure. Overall, we took about 50% of the time out. This was kind of fun to take back to the leadership because they were trying to find small numbers of savings, and this was a big one. And they started to look at the technology very seriously at this point. This is the first activity that we ran, and we didn't do this in a pilot environment first. It was first reviewed by the technicians in the actual activity that they ran. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, here's another example of how we use the technology for spacecraft. This panel that you see on the left bottom side is a spacecraft adapter jettison panel. It protects the spacecraft as it's being launched into its correct position. Once it's in orbit, it's jettisoned away from the space vehicle. And there's fasteners on this structure that hold the cable harnessing in place. One of the things that we thought would be useful is to use mixed reality to know where to place those fasteners, because normally they're measuring with rogue tools where to place those fasteners. And what we saw was that we could finish the task in about 90-something% less time. So you see some of the numbers here on what we saved. Overall, we found that we could save about $38 per fastener in touch labor. And Lockheed was purchasing over 2 million of those fasteners per year at that time. The manufacturer of those fasteners saw what we were doing, and they created an AR/VR team to further the technology for implementation. So this has been in work for years now. Over the COVID timeframe, we deployed to over 10 sites, including Kennedy Space Center and Johnson Space Center and Michoud and Stennis and Cortland, some sites in Denver and California, and I think I might be missing a couple. Let's go on to the next slide. This is my final slide. So if you're wanting to deploy a technology for manufacturing, there's certain considerations, of course, that you want to take very early on, and to understand the potential savings of the technology, which we talk about here, and then also to bring your organizations for deploying and scaling the technology in the very early stages so that you can get off to a good start, both with the technology and with the collaboration from those organizations. And I'll turn it back to Matt.
Super. Thanks so much, Shelley. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Matt, do you want to explain the Q&A?
I'll do that. Give me just a second here. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so here's how Q&A is going to happen, because this is fun. We take Q&A from 3 different environments. We're going to ask each of our guests to come back up to the stage. So Ibrahim and Andrew, if you guys could, grab a seat, grab a microphone. We are doing a discussion here with our live audience and our virtual audience. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to give up control of the center screen in the virtual space right now. I'm trying to. There we go. So that Shelley and Ali can each take control of one of those screens and turn their cameras back on.
You can just pick
I'll let
one,
you guys figure
pick
out
a
which is
middle
which.
screen if you like,
There we go.
Shelley.
I see Ali. I don't see Shelly yet. Okay, so the way that this is going to work, if you're here live in the physical space, if you would like to ask a question, all you do is raise your hand. I am watching when people raise their hands. I will try to call on people in the order that they raise their hands. You will, when I do call on you, either Ron or Andy over there have a microphone. They will hand you a microphone, ask your question. Please give the microphone right back to them as soon as you're done asking your question. In the virtual space, if there is a question, there is the ability under the emoji to raise your hand. One of those, I believe, is hand raising. If not, Caroline, I'll ask you to sort of monitor if there's somebody in there who has a hand raise.
Yes, I'm doing that. Thanks.
And she will let me know. For just so you guys are aware, in the frame environment, if you are talking, the physical room here won't be able to hear you unless I put the microphone up to you. So I'll let you know when to go. But the web stream will be able to hear you on the web stream. Which, Andy, you kind of got to watch the web stream, so I'll let Ron primarily do the microphone. Anyone who chats a question in the live stream, Andy will be the one who will kind of raise his hand, and I'll call on him to read it into the microphone here. So that said, we will be taking questions live from all three environments. We will be starting with some questions of our own as well. Caroline, I'll let you know. Do you want to actually ask the first question of everybody to get the conversation started, and then we'll watch for raised hands beyond that?
Sure, that sounds great. So I think that what I've heard tonight is that it's really not a question of can we build these tools, right? Because they're already here. These tools for augmented reality, virtual reality are being used and leveraged. But can each of you talk a little bit about how does a company go from piloting to scaling these things? Because that to me is one of the hugest challenges in these large enterprise environments. And just as it relates to you, and obviously we have the safety and the UL solutions, and those focus a little bit more on getting those advanced and approved. But I'd be curious for people to speak to that about the idea of how you scale with these kinds of tools. Shelley, do you want to start?
Sure. So, from experience at Lockheed and then working at Microsoft as a director of strategic operations, where we were helping to remove the barriers to adoption, you definitely want to go at scaling intentionally. You want to make sure that you're looking at solutions in the early stages that can be scaled. So, for example, long time ago, I would go to the Augmented World Expo and I would bring my IT and security teams along with me. And I would point to the solutions that I thought would be a good fit, and they would go talk to those organizations. And in 1 or 2 days, we could figure out what solutions to pursue and which ones would not be able to be shaped for our environments based on our requirements. That was something that helped us leverage technology earlier in broader spaces. You also want to be careful of getting into pilot purgatory. And by that, what we're talking about is some organizations end up with the technology in a demo facility, in a lab, and they have difficulty getting it into the actual environment to make use of. Taking it out onto the manufacturing floor, for example, for the technicians to actually use. You want to figure out how to do that in the early stages and grow with the technology as it grows so that you can benefit from it, which gives you the return on investment, which then allows it to scale further. You definitely want to keep in mind to keep your expenses low in the early stages so that your return on investment is healthy and that you're seeing the returns that are needed in order for leadership to say continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Shelley. And Ali, do you have something to share about that in terms of what you want to consider when you're trying to scale beyond pilot projects?
Yes. So we've seen a number of different sort of ways that companies have scaled. But certainly the IT and security is extremely important, and that's something that you want to be able to, understand upfront, identify the risks, and have a path to, how you're going to thread that with IT and security. So that as Shelley has emphasized, that is really really important, and it can completely sort of can be a blocker. For us, the other thing that we see normally is that you want to get the business units involved, when scaling an enterprise. So these are the people with the problems, and the sooner you can get the tool into their hands and understand what are the challenges they are facing and be able to work with them sooner, that I believe is an important uh, part of scaling and bringing the business value early into the organization, because they're the guys who can really say, yeah, we're saving so much, and 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 bring that credibility to the use of XR in manufacturing. The other thing is that we've seen is that it doesn't have to scale to a large number of users, but it can scale to small uh, production applications where the organization starts seeing immediate sort of business results. So scaling doesn't necessarily mean you want to get it to like 2,000 users right away, but it's solving a production problem, like replacing physical prototypes with virtual prototypes, and that may be a small team that sees that benefit. So these are and obviously other for us, the things that we worked on with our customers is also integrating things like single sign-on and Microsoft Active Directory, where you're removing some of the friction points and making the software more easily accessible on any platform. So users can use it on a laptop, then they can escalate to an XR device, but maybe that might take a little longer in an organization to kind of ramp it up and get through IT and a number of these other challenges. So that's been our experience.
Thank you, Ali. Matt, I can turn it over to you, and you can take some more questions or ask some more questions.
Andrew.
I was going to let Andrew jump in on that one also.
Is this one working? Okay, yeah. I was going to agree very much with what both Shelley and Ali said. I mean, the idea of pilot purgatory is terrifying. I could say I've hit that many times in trying to deploy this. It's definitely it kills projects very, very easily. So trying to plan ahead of time for the things that are going to stall the project, whether it's approvals from a PIE, whether it's financial parts, whether it's IT, you need to plan those ahead of time so you don't get stuck at a certain point, just stuck there when you're trying to deploy. The other idea of bringing in the IT and security organization as early as possible. I heard someone say once that, like, bring them donuts, make friends with them, make them your best friends at the company, because they can help you deploy it so much faster than if you try to spring something on them. I mean, many times we've been like, oh, we've got this new headset, we want to hook it up to our network, we want to stream stuff to it, and they're like, whoa, our network's not set up that way, we can't do that. It's a hassle once we've already decided we're going to deploy this, but then the IT and security organizations like, this can't happen, we don't have the infrastructure in place for this, it's impossible. So getting them on board as early as possible is supremely important. And then the last one, honestly, because this technology is very, very sort of personal. It's it's immersive by nature. You have to get people to try it. Honestly, you could talk about it all you want. You can show them slides. You can show them things. But honestly, some of the biggest mind changers I've seen in people is when they put on a headset or use a VR headset or AR headset. And then they're like, oh, I get it now. You could talk about it, and they're like, oh, in my head, I understand that. That's no problem. But then they put it on, they're like, oh, I didn't know I could see this. I didn't know I could do this. Actually getting them to try it on sometimes is a struggle, especially for people who are like higher up in the organization, I will say, like our managers and things like that, like our director level people. They're always hesitant to like try on a headset because I think they'll look stupid. But then you actually get them to do it, and it completely changes their mind about what can be done, and they come out with a much better perspective on it. So I say actually getting them to try it is very, very important, to actually putting on a headset and things.
It's donuts, chocolate, and cheesecake, right?
Yeah.
So
It goes a
even
long
though
ways.
our organization works on product safety, we are big proponents of technology. We're always trying to do different things. Matter of fact, we did do a pilot with a bunch of headsets, and some of the things that I've learned, one of the things that's really important that will make or break a deployment is the storytelling. What is the story that's being provided with that immersive experience? We had a couple stories where it was sharing an example of a home burning down because of some flammable mattresses or some types of products, and we had a demo of that was just a 360 camera that captured one of those lab experiments, put it on the immersive headset, and then be able to put a story together with that. And that was a very teachable type of concept for our lab technicians, anybody that we were educating in community outreach, anybody that we were trying to explain why certain types of materials catch fire faster than others and how the fire response should be. So that video and sequence of immersive experience was really important. That the story was great from start to finish. When we started trying to deploy now for an enterprise use case, saying, okay, well, we bought 10 HoloLens and we're testing these things out. Are we going to be able to do collaborative meetings? Are we going to be able to do different things that we haven't been able to do? I think what fell short in those kind of pilots was the storytelling. So this next round that we're planning at some point to do, I'll have a big focus on that, and the things already mentioned about making really good friends with your IT team, because it's not going to come from me as the business team that's necessarily going to do the deployment. It will come from my IT leadership that will make that decision, along with the business being supportive that they go down that direction.
So I'm going to watch for live questions in the space here. I'll watch for an arm to go up. But the two things I'll say about the you have to try it, two of my favorite experiences in that, one with VR, one with AR, was a 2-star general who speaks very much like Ibrahim in deep voice, quiet, talks like this, very direct. Watching him put on a VR headset and high-pitched laugh for 2 minutes straight, which honestly, the two people who were with him were really confused because I don't think they'd ever seen that in their life before, and one of them was a full bird colonel. The other one was watching a C-suite pharmaceutical executive run around an exposition floor like a 12-year-old playing an augmented reality game. And I mean, like, bumping into other professionals. It was really, really funny to watch. Like, these are people who are like, oh yes, augmented reality, virtual reality, we've got all this. And then you just watch them lose it like little kids. It's great. Any questions in the, come on, let me see a hand go up. Anyone? Nobody? We can keep going. All right. You got one from the, uh-oh.
I'll say while we're waiting for questions, I've seen the generals and admirals do the same thing, and their personality changes completely. And they start handing it off like, you gotta see this. It's fun to see that come out. It's one of my favorite things about the technology.
Yeah, I'd just like to add.
Ellie, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've seen I've had similar experiences, but I've also, heard from one of our most important customers that, VR and AR is sometimes treated like, oh, this is a toy. Okay, it's not a serious piece of technology that's solving business problems. And I think that, getting that across is equally important to get the buy-in and the understanding and the change management, I think. So just wanted to add that.
It's definitely where you need to focus on the ROI, and the reason why is what we would call it. If you can figure out why it makes sense to deploy. One of the things I didn't mention is in the first 5 years of using the technology with spacecraft manufacturing at 10 different sites, we didn't have a single error documented while mixed reality was in use. And I didn't realize that until I was about at the 5th year, but that was probably a more important metric than 90% savings. And so it's
And
definitely
Shelley,
one where you
can you speak to that, and in terms of the devices that you were using? Because I think for the audience, it's hard because there are so many products and they're changing a lot all the time. So can you speak a little bit about how you decided on that particular one, and then what was that like to go through even the life cycle of that project with one existing piece of one device, mixed reality?
Sure.
Yeah.
So when we looked at the life cycle of a spacecraft, from the design to manufacturing to, you do have maintenance on some aspects of spacecraft on the ground and operations. We knew that we wanted to start with manufacturing because we could quantify the value more directly, and the naysayers would have less to say about the metrics that we were using. So we ran trade studies on an annual basis. Even after we had selected the technology, we continued to run trade studies so that we could keep up with what all was out there. It is a rapidly emerging space. We used the HoloLens, and we used a platform from Scope AR called WorkLink for step-based work instruction. And part of the rationale was that Microsoft was willing to work with us on the modifications that were needed for the HoloLens to meet IT and security requirements. At the time, very few, well, no solutions had the requirements for managing the devices, the requirements for us to connect the devices to our intranet. So we worked with them to shape those enterprise grade capabilities. And Scope AR was a very small company at the time. I think that I was their first customer, and they were willing to shape the solution to meet the requirements that we had as well. There's numerous companies these days that have surfaced to provide solutions like this, but it's important to either have the capability already in place that can meet the requirements, or to have a partner who's willing to shape the technology in the areas that you're going to have to address. We ended up getting the technology into classified spaces, which required significant shaping. And we were very lucky to have partners and support from the internal organizations to make all of that work. It was many moving parts all at the same time. But today you have some great options for solutions that can meet those requirements. So
Great.
So I wanted to go back to the earlier question that, around which, well, first of all, it was a good question. How do you know what technology to use or which equipment to use for what purpose? Just remember, how immersive do you want it to be? Because there are times you're going to want it to be very light immersive, and you may not need the most expensive thing that's out there, or something that's, fully immersive like a virtual reality headset. And sometimes even the augmented reality or mixed reality, they tend to be to the point where it can do full virtual reality. If you don't need that, then start thinking about solutions that are not, I wouldn't say Google Glass, but something that's kind of in that realm of not needing to go down that full immersion. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of the equipment makers as well. They're realizing maybe we don't need to be making full immersion all the time, because that's not yet the use case for a lot of people. So.
Just to jump in on that real quick, because you brought up an interesting topic. So I've spoken to several people who work in heavy manufacturing, and they've told me, a lot of them have told me over and over again, particularly from Europe, you will never get a VR headset or a HoloLens or a Magic Leap approved on an actual operating manufacturing floor because it obscures vision. And I said, okay, well, yeah, technically a hard hat obscures your vision a little bit too, depending on how you wear it. But the concept there that was brought, one of the things that was just brought to my attention relatively recently is one of the well-known old use cases for a HoloLens, and you've seen it now on Magic Leap as well, is the ability to have live remote support, where you're a technician in the field, you're looking at a piece of machinery, you're connected to somebody remote, they can see what you're seeing, and they can actually literally kind of like draw augmented spots in front of you of like, here, you have to touch this panel, you have to test here, things like that. Even if you can't do that today because of restrictions on a manufacturing floor with something like a HoloLens, the Meta Ray-Ban glasses have that camera capability, and while they can't do the augmenting of drawing like what to touch in front of you, they can do the remote support and talk you through it. So you could basically be pointing like, oh, wait, I'm touching this, no, that one, okay, great. Because they do have cameras built in. So it's not really true augmented reality yet, other than the fact that you can do those remote support use cases. And Andrew, you were gonna jump in real quick.
I mean, similar to what you're saying, I mean, choosing a device is exceedingly hard. I mean, I can speak from my experience is that honestly, the device manufacturers are going too fast, because when we pick a device and we're going to deploy it, we need to make sure we can use it for a couple of years. But now there's a new headset now, and then there's the Apple Vision, and then there's another headset, and the technology is increasing too fast. It's exciting. It's exciting to see, but it's going too fast for me to get a consistent, like, I'm going to deploy it for 5 years and use this, get my ROI out of it, and then switch to the next device, because within a year, the device I've deployed is now obsolete. And so now everyone's building for the new device, and that's difficult. I don't know if I have a good solution for it. I mean, I'm just saying that's a problem I'm running into. It seems like it's going so quickly, and that ends up being difficult to manage.
Yeah,
and Matt, I for the person who says the technology will never be approved on a heavy manufacturing floor. I don't want to disagree, but I mean, we were doing this in 2016. So, if it's approached the right way and with the right procedures in place, it's safe for those type of environments.
All right, we have
Even
we
for
have a
spacecraft
we have a live question in the
series.
live space. Sorry to cut off. Is that okay? Ali, you there? Is that you?
Yeah, no, I
talking?
just wanted to add 30 seconds. That's one of the challenges that we've been addressing with our platform, and our customers essentially call it future proof, because you really don't know. And as Andrew said, things are evolving so fast that we've been working with our customers, and we've seen that evolution of new devices come online, and we have our customers are using IQ3 with whatever is the best device for that application. So all the way from in VR, they upstream they're using the Vive, and then they are using the HoloLens for work instructions or training. So we've been able to solve that problem by adopting WebXR and really making the platform future proof, so that this becomes less of an issue for the organization, and in taking that decision to step into XR, and it doesn't stop them from going forward.
All right, so we're gonna go to a live question in the physical space here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you maybe already answered the question, Andrew, but I was just curious if you had considered the Apple Vision Pro for the simulation work that you're doing, and if you tried it, if it has any positive aspects to it. So loud.
You're sitting directly under a speaker. That's why. So actually, if you block the speaker more than block yourself, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I was just curious if you considered using it, and if not, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I tested out the solution. I mean, you said the Vision Pro, right? Yeah. So, I mean, tested out the solution. It's a very elegant headset. I mean, it's very high performance. It's very nice. We've been using like a HoloLens for a while, which has sort of similar capabilities, but obviously it's much older. It's a sunsetting product. It's gonna be probably retired. So we've been using that for a very long time. I am looking into seeing how we could possibly deploy for the Vision Pro. It's because of the. I mean, it's very high. I mean, in terms of the visual, you guys very high quality. I like the idea of pass-through AR a lot better than the lens, the clear lens-based AR. Personally, I don't know. It just feels better to me. And so, yes, we've looked at it, but again, this comes down to a deployment cycle. Like, I mean, we just bought a bunch of like Quest 3s for deployment, and we're going to be using those. We'll use some pass-through on there. We still have our HoloLenses, and we have that. It's about when for that, then it comes down to more of when I could get the budget in order to buy some, honestly, and when I could get the buy-in for it, and when we could prove that it has such substantial benefit over our current process. And that's a hard one to make. You have to say, okay, this is what's going to cost to upgrade. This is what benefit we're going to see. Maybe workflow improvement, maybe a speed of deployment improvement. If we can really demonstrate that, then we can get the buy off in order to buy it, or in order to purchase some and deploy them. But then it's also, now we need to train on this new hardware because it's different than the old hardware. So balancing all that is difficult. That's what I was talking about. Like, that process of balancing and figuring out all that takes time. And then if there's a new headset every couple months, it's like, I can't do this every couple months. I gotta every couple of years maybe, but not every couple months. So yeah,
like, how many headsets are we talking about? Like, how many are you actually deploying
in the organization? We have numerous. I mean, in product development, we have multiple VR sites. So I mean, we have sites all around the world, here in Belgium and Italy and India, and I try to coordinate all of them. So we have hundreds of headsets all around there, and then we have some also that are being used for training and marketing at trade shows, things like that. We try to coordinate with those as well, so that we have a single solution that goes to all of those. And so trying to manage that type of deployment can be difficult. Yeah.
I'll also add, if you're looking at what device to deploy, there's several considerations that a lot of times new organizations haven't thought about until they get a ways into it. A simple example: can you wear glasses with a device? If you cannot wear glasses with a device, do they provide inserts? If they provide inserts in place of glasses, is the company going to buy the inserts? Is the employee going to buy the insert? How does that work? Can you pass the device from person to person? Do you need to pass the device from person to person, or are you going to buy a device for every employee that needs to use the device? Some of the devices are customized, like Apple Vision Pro is customized to the person that the device is intended for. You want to check to see if they can pass it from person to person, if that's the model that you're working with, or if that's not an option. Is the device tethered? Is that okay for your manufacturing environment? With spacecraft, we had to be very careful that things were not dropped on spacecraft components. It could be months of delay if you did that. So if there's a tether, is that going to be an issue in the type of environment that you're working? There's various considerations for the environment. You might also want to check to see if the device is safety glass rated. That can be very important in some environments. So there's a number of things that you have to take into consideration. But all of the devices have incredibly strong capabilities in some areas. It just depends on what your needs are.
Matt, we had a question here in the virtual space from Feed. Feed, do you want to go ahead and unmic and ask the question? I can also ask it for him.
Caroline, feed. You'll have to try unmiking, try opening your mic now. You were blocked from doing that up until a second ago, but you should be able to do it now.
Well, that's too bad. All right, I'll go ahead and ask because he put them in the chat. He had a question. I'll start with the latest one. He had a question about the use of active manufacturing and any OSHA regulations that are recommended to check on. And I think that question might be best pointed to Ibrahim.
So is there an active OSHA regulation? Yeah, so as I mentioned, the actual regulation is 1910 subpart S. I mean, I can help answer that if anybody wants to reach out afterwards.
Okay.
But the OSHA had published it, back in 1970. What it does is it calls out all the electrical equipment. It says all electrical equipment needs to meet these requirements. Within that section, it has a general requirement. Then it says that everything needs to be approved. The word approved in the OSHA context means that it's certified. And so then what OSHA does is they have a whole program about who does the certification. There's 20 companies that are approved to do certification. Out of those 20, about 10 of us touch electrical. The other 10 are doing like mechanical, plumbing, and other kinds of categories that OSHA also requires a third-party certification on. For the electrical 10, maybe about 5 of us do the battery operated type of electrical products, anything with a lithium battery in it. And then specifically for UL 8400, UL Solutions is really the only one right now that's offering it that meets the OSHA regulation. So none of the other companies that are part of the OSHA certification program have achieved that, but I'm sure they will in the next 1 to 2 years or 3 years. Whenever we see the transition of manufacturers getting certified. And again, it comes back to the end users. It comes back to this community. It comes back to IT executives, folks like Andrew. Before you start to buy large bulk deployments or procurement of the equipment, ask these critical questions of the manufacturer, saying, "Hey, do you have certification? Are you UL 8400 certified?" The answer comes back no. Say, look, it's then the liability falls on the company who did the deployment more than it does on the actual manufacturer. And God forbid one of the employees says that they had an injury, OSHA will step in. They'll point out their 29 CFR 1910 subpart S requirement, which they have published it on their safety and health bulletin page more than once. And they'll say, okay, show us the electrical safety certification. Maybe somebody will show a standard called UL 62368. It's one for audio, video, information technology, but they're going to ask further, saying, okay, well, you're a head-mounted display. Show us the UL 8400. So just walking you through how this works from product liability standpoint and how manufacturers have to think, as well as professional companies, how they have to think so that they're in compliance with the OSHA laws.
Thank you,
Great.
Matt.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. And I think that might be something that Fade may want to follow up on because he's got some other things around the SEC and other InfoSec, other regulations there. Thank you. Matt, back to you, or I have some questions I can ask if you.
Yeah, we have another question from the live space and then a question from the live stream. So go ahead, Tristan.
Hi, thank you for all of you guys and all that can contribute up until this point. I did have a question around when I first seen this technology. I seen it deployed on like a cell phone or an iPad. Is that not the norm anymore? Is it more AR, VR deployment? And the other question I had was around manufacturing. So there is a OSHA standard for manufacturing at the current moment for this type of technology, I guess, I'm trying to follow that. I don't know if that makes sense.
I can try. Let me answer. First of all, augmented reality that still will exist on a cell phone mobile device, that 2D experience. Office employee, everything around me in the office still has to meet OSHA rules as well. So imagine if I walk into the coffee room and I go and pour myself a coffee, and that coffee machine is provided by my employer. The coffee machine doesn't have any type of certification. And guess what? When I go and I touch it, I got electrocution, or I have a fire that broke out because of that coffee machine. Well, that OSHA could step in about the coffee machine and say, look, to the employer. They wouldn't hold the employee responsible. They'll go to the employer saying, hey, you had a coffee machine that caught on fire here. Did you supply a certified one? Did it meet the coffee standard? And if it didn't, they can step in. One very famous example of them stepping in was the body cams that are worn by police officers. In New York City, one body cam caught on fire on one of the New York police officers. Turned out none of the body cams were certified. So when the NYPD officer filed his complaint, he said to OSHA, I got injured on my job. OSHA called the NYPD, said, show us your certification on your body cams. The body cams didn't have certification. So the company who made it called us in a hurry. So UL Solutions got that call. But I can't, it's already post deployment, right? They had released 3,000 of those cameras. So the NYPD collected all of them, shipped them back to Texas where the corporate headquarters was for that company. And it was in the news. This was like 2017, 2018 timeframe. So, I mean, that's an example of how extreme it can get.
I mean, just to quick on the first part, because that's the one I can speak to in terms of like the mobile phone and tablet based AR. I mean, there are still applications for that. And mainly for us, when we're considering using that type of technology application, it's more about how wide scale we're going to deploy it. Because there's many times, I mean, personally, I think, and I think most people agree that an immersive headset gives you the best experience. I mean, it gives you the most immersion, the most understanding. You get stereo vision, so you get depth perception, things like that. But there are times when you want to deploy it. Like I had an example on the video, was at the very end, where it's something we wanted to deploy that any customer of our vehicle could quickly open up the app and like drop the machine in front of them and walk around it. Well, not everyone has a headset. I mean, a small percentage of the population has a headset. So you want to deploy it for something that a large percentage of the population has. So mobile phones, tablets, things like that. Also, one of the things for us we're looking at is doing training of our service technicians. And again, these are all at dealerships. I mean, our service technician, our company works very much like an automotive company in that we have dealerships where they sell our machines. There are service technicians there that need to be trained. Well, again, they probably don't have a headset on site. They can't do an immersive based training, but they probably have a tablet or mobile phone so they can hold it up, visualize the components on the vehicle and walk around it using the mobile phone. So there's applications for that. It's just who you're deploying for, and that's where you consider it.
Yes. And for manufacturing spaces, if you're hands-on, if you're actually performing the tasks, if you're wearing the device, you don't have to set the device down while you're performing the task. You have all the information that you need when you hold up your hand this way, it looks like a laser is coming out of your hand. You select content with gestures or with voice. So it accelerates the time that you can complete a task. And if your metric, if time savings is powerful for your organization, like in our environment, building spacecraft, a day of delay costs $1 million per day. It makes sense to have the device and to accelerate, the time. You can also cut down the potential for risk if having handheld devices is a risk in your environment.
Just to add a quick note to that, we have customers that regularly use kind of have a mixed environment where some are in a VR headset leading a design review or some kind of a manufacturing review, and others on kind of standard issue laptops, which allows many people to participate that may not be able to do that because they don't have a headset or don't want to wear a headset. So we've been enabled a lot more participation and scale by allowing different sort of device independent participation in still in a spatial environment, but from a fully immersive uh, a product manager or whoever leading the review to others participating from their standard laptops or other devices.
And I want to add to that, Ollie, it's a great point that if you can have a solution that's device agnostic, meaning you can use it on AR devices, VR devices, tablets, phones,
Right.
all at the same time. You can have a person performing the task. You could have quality engineers reviewing from a tablet. Different roles might need different viewpoints. So it could be very powerful in that sense. And even to have
Right.
people remotely viewing what's going on
Yes.
and
And,
providing inputs in
and
collaborative
and
sense.
suppliers too, suppliers may not have a headset, but they can participate in a live interactive session where they're being shown that, okay, maybe there's some modification or whatever needs to be discussed, and instead of passing around PowerPoint slides or images, they can really cut down that turnaround time by just having the ability to send a link and just join a live space, just like we are in this environment.
So I'm gonna end this question here, but the one thing I'm gonna say is, Ibrahim, you said that holding a mobile device is not spatial computing, and I will absolutely disagree with you there, because ultimately you're developing for one platform. It's device agnostic. The technically a VR device is pretty much a cell phone strapped to your eyes. It's really not that different. It's just a matter of what you're holding. That said, we have a question from the web that's been waiting a long time, so I'll get this to them. And I know the answer, but I'll let you guys answer first. Is there a tool, or actually, I'll just go to this point. Can you name any tools or applications or standards that you guys are currently using to import data from different platform software, such as like CAD or SolidWorks for manufacturing, or simulations for plant operations? Just what software are you guys using to import that to be using it in virtual environments?
Yeah, I mean, the data prep part of it is probably honestly the biggest part of our job. And that takes, it is frustrating. It takes so long. I mean, because we're starting from an engineering organization, so all our data is in CAD, which is about the heaviest 3D data you could possibly get. In order to bring CAD data into like a mobile device, you have to strip down a lot of things over, remove the metadata, drop the tessellation, like do level of detail or optimization, and all this. It takes a lot of effort. In terms of tools we use, I mean, we have a lot of different tools. I mean, we build heavily in Unity, so we use Pixis, which is Unity's tool. It's very good for that type of application. It can do a lot of like shrink wrapping of 3D models, things like that. We also use Blender sometimes to do a lot of that. So between those two is usually how we'll get our CAD data into a lightweight enough format to run on a mobile device. There's some other options out there as well, but those are probably the two primary that we're using if you're asking about specific software.
I'll add to that. Like way back in the day, we had to manually decimate the models, which took forever. That was one of the areas that we focused on streamlining in order to be able to see the ROI. But these days it's changed. And instead of answering the question, I'm going to kick it to Ollie for him to tell you what they do, because it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so we've, that was one of the challenges we had to tackle early on, and it was like, hey, this sort of a whole platform is, how are we going to solve this problem? And we have an integrated solution here where, our customers can onboard their CAD data or, other formats, and we have, a proprietary optimization to reduce the size of that, and make that available in the XR environment for design reviews, training, and other applications, so they can reuse those same assets. We've taken a number of interesting things like a model-based approach, so that preserves a lot of the metadata and the actual hierarchy, which is maybe lost in translation in some other systems. And we also, there's always trade-offs, and we've looked at, what we've done is optimize around technical accuracy and speed. So we kind of try to make it a little independent of how much the discretization is of the model and how many parts you have. So we've been able to sort of make our environment more robust to those kind of parameters, so that if you take a measurement, for example, it will give you the measurement at the accuracy of the underlying CAD model, regardless of how it may look graphically. So those are some of the things that we've integrated into our platform, and that is a really hard problem. And if it takes a long time to address that, then that impacts the scalability and ultimately the business value of XR in manufacturing.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one other quick thing. I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely, optimization of the 3D geometry is very important, but sometimes it's about how you're bringing that 3D geometry to the device. So sometimes it's not about optimizing the geometry and then loading it onto the device. Sometimes you can stream that data from maybe more high-powered, like a high-performance computer or something, stream it over the network to the device. So you can look at doing that instead of trying to heavily optimize your data. You look at which options are best for that type of use case. I mean, if you have a good network connection, you have a high-powered desktop computer, you can stream the data to your device rather than loading it onto the device. But then you have to make sure you have network connection. You have to make sure all that's in place. So there's different ways to look at it as well, not just in how I'm going to optimize the geometry.
Yep. Very true. Um, yeah, we've built a device agnostic environment, so we can take in data from various CAD packages, as well as we have tools that allow companies to plug in their own custom formats as well and write into our data structures. And we have optimized it all the way to the GPU. So that's another aspect of dealing with a large number of CAD objects and draw calls, is that the optimization goes all the way to the GPU, and ensuring that you can get that low latency performance.
I have
So
to
and
say
we do
that
support SolidWorks. If anyone's interested in trying out their SolidWorks models, give us a shout. Happy to look at that.
I'm just enjoying my fellow presenters because I'm learning a lot from Ali, Shelly, and from Andrew. That all these things are very important for how you think about deployments, how you think about CAD drawings. As you can imagine, UL gets a bunch of CAD drawings to review manufacturers' products. I'm thinking in my head, how do I get a whole fleet of engineers at our company? We have a few thousand engineers. How do we get a bunch of them to be able to put on a headset, work through some models, and be able to have a manufacturer who's been producing their CAD drawings, but to make it more immersive and for them to be able to do a construction review, do pass that through to the device.
Self-serving answer. How do you do that? You call me and we come in and demonstrate, and we come in and demonstrate it in 2 weeks.
Not a bad idea, Matt.
All right, Caroline, I think has the last question here. Go ahead, Caroline.
Sure. My question really speaks to the talent universe, and maybe there's some people in the live audience or out there in Chicago that are in the space or getting into the manufacturing space professionally. Can you all speak a little bit to how you have found the best ways both for upskilling existing folks inside teams who are taking on these new technologies, and not just the customers doing your training simulations, but the actual people who are then utilizing those, as well as new talent that's coming in your doors. If you could just speak a little bit on the talent landscape, I'd be interested in that.
Give me 1 second. Where are my DePaul students? Raise your hands. Where are my other people who are doing AR VR development that are potentially looking for roles right now?
That's
Yeah.
the way we do it here,
So-
VRA Chicago,
This is the way
right
we
there.
point this out. So there are folks in the room that this directly applies to. So please, if you're looking, these are people, and again, I know these guys are gaming in that world, but they've been working on AR VR at DePaul. So let's show them the industrial pipeline for jobs as opposed to gaming, because we can talk all night about gaming, but that's a whole other. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to my team. My team's very eclectic in their background. I mean, me personally, I have a mechanical engineering background. So I came into the company thinking maybe I'll do design engineer things, designing in CAD, things like that. But I mean, personal background in computer graphics, computer hardware kind of merged with that knowledge of the machine. And then I kind of fell into the VR role. But I have members on my team that are specialized in human factors and ergonomics. They're very much based around how the human interacts with the vehicle. And that's very much kind of VR and immersive as well, because it's about how humans going to interact with the virtual vehicle. I have members of my team that specialize in kind of a gaming development background, because obviously developing these virtual scenes is very much almost like a game. And then I have members of my team that are, I have one member that's he has a 3D drafting background for like CAD drafting, and then technical education. So with very eclectic organization, and I find that each person, because of their background, brings a different kind of view of the technology and how to use it and how they see the technology fitting in, and all those views put together really is a very holistic way of looking at it, and gives you the best perspective on how to deploy the technology. So I mean, in like XR, I mean, a lot of people are computer science, a lot of people are things like that. But I think there's a wide variety of backgrounds that can fit into this type of role. So that's at least what I can say for mine.
I can tell you from Lockheed, when I hired people into my team, very few people had experience in AR or VR at that time. It was so early stage. Everyone was a skeptic. It hadn't really gotten into the manufacturing spaces much at that time. If a person had CAD background, analytics skill, that was fantastic. And a willingness to learn, because this industry space is ever changing and growing. I look for people who are passionate about figuring things out. There's 2 quotes that I have here on my desk. One is, change is inevitable, growth is optional. And that applies in this space. Another one that I have, it's one of my favorites, is everything is figure outable. And that's what we did on a daily basis. We figured out ways to solve things that hadn't been solved before. And then to have the communication skill to work with the IT teams, to work with the security teams, to work with the technicians and the engineers, and then also to present to the higher level leadership the capabilities of the technology. And by higher level leadership, what I mean is at Lockheed, I would have people who would come in their first year and be in front of all of the groups that I already mentioned. But on a weekly basis, they were also in front of executive VPs. They were in front of generals and admirals, sometimes multiple times throughout the week. So, having that analytic skill, the ability to communicate and work with people at any level, and then the passion to learn new things. I can take someone who has that combination of skill sets and do amazing things. So I hope all of you find fun and enjoyable positions in this space, because I think it's growing and it's going to be really exciting to see what happens in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks, Shelley.
Shelley, what you just said is spot on. I'm talking as the director of consumer tech for UL, solutions. I watch technology trends. I watch market data. There's nowhere else to go that I can see other than we've moved into the virtual augmented world in such a way that it's a regular everyday product that we're using. And there were quotes from Samsung CEOs a couple of years ago saying he expected it to happen by a certain time period, or other people. I mean, other very more successful, more future-focused folks can see the future that this is leading to. Maybe they have it wrong in terms of the date, but it's coming. And there's only so much that people want to continue to reinvest and invest in a mobile phone as it relates to your daily device. I mean, I think a lot of us have already experienced that for the last 20 years. That's our daily, or 15 years minimum, that you've had a daily device that was your rectangle in your pocket. So what else is there? And so this is what's coming, not just for one case of manufacturing or one case for training or one case for some type of enterprise use while you're in the office, but it's coming for a lot of practical purposes. And the more that the minds in this room and in minds in other cities and places that are having these conversations about the applications and how to use it, and the more the storytelling gets better, it is where we're all headed.
Matt, do we have time for that one last question? Because I wanted to ask, because I know Feed had a question.
I'm actually going to read that one out and give a little answer on that, if it's the one you're talking about that he put on YouTube.
Sure.
I was going to give Ali an answer, a chance to answer this one, though.
Okay. The question, or can I just add a thought to the previous question on the?
Sure.
I think that there's also an opportunity to bring this tool early, sort of into the educational environment, right? To, how can you bring it into the curriculum, and so that the sort of the new graduates are exposed to this as a powerful tool, something they can use, and they understand, even at a basic level, that this technology is there to help them when they go into manufacturing or whatever, maybe architecture or whatever they're going into. So I think that's another area where I think that bringing XR technology into the learning and education space is an important piece of this. So yep.
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, so before we get to final question, there was another question that I'm just going to answer very quickly. Unfortunately, this is going to be a very hey, we're going to defer this answer. But Feed asked very specifically, have you seen the application in the food industry? Equipment design and maintenance are obvious use cases, but other use cases for food? And my answer to that is we are focusing on food agriculture, and I'm trying to remember what the other one is. Food agriculture and logistics? No, I can't remember. Anyway, but we're actually going to be focusing on that topic as an entire industry later this year. So we'll have plenty of time to answer that question a little bit later. But yes, there are plenty of use cases in the food industry.
And
put simply,
Matt, can I also add on that topic? In addition to the fireside chat, I'm going to be hosting a panel at AWE, and Coca-Cola is on the panel as an example. We definitely will see other instances of that.
Yeah, there's a lot there. But that said, okay, so the way we're going to do this now is we're going to handle closing remarks. So here's how closing remarks works. A little bit of a quick roundtable. I will call on you guys. I'll pick an order and call on y'all. But every panelist, you basically have 20 seconds to just give a closing statement. Pretty much anything you want to say, anything you want to talk about. The topic we were talking about, we do want you to keep it brief, though, about 20, 30 seconds. Then Caroline will give her closing remarks. I will give some quick closing remarks on my side, and then we'll go into housekeeping. But with that, we're going to let you guys go to the closing remarks. I'm stalling right now to give you a few seconds to think about the 30 seconds of what you're going to say. And I'm going to call on everybody in reverse order of their presentation. So Shelly, you're under the gun. Go.
Okay, so if anyone's seen the movie Moneyball, I've made statements recently that this technology is like the Moneyball for manufacturing spaces, and there's a reason for that. It's growing. It's going to continue to grow. We see it from all different angles. If you have gone to AWE or if you're going to AWE, I started going, I want to say about 12 or 13 years ago, and it has tripled in size, and that's an indicator. We see so many companies using this technology, and it's growing. It's going to continue to grow. So if you're looking at this as as a area of work, I think you're focusing on a pretty safe bet.
Thank you, Shelly. All right, Ibrahim, go.
So obviously for manufacturing, as I've already discussed, there's that product safety side of it. But more important for this group and this audience, just understand that where future needs to head, and it needs to be inclusive of an immersive experience. And if that comes through the right way, things will be faster produced, at a better quality and at a better price. And that's always what's happening in manufacturing, that anything that gets manufactured, it's all about having better quality, faster produced, and at a better price. And that's really what's at the heart of why, augmented and virtual reality in manufacturing is going to take off, as well as the use cases it has for in so many other applications.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Okay, Ali, your time.
Yeah,
Go.
thanks again to VRAR Chicago for this opportunity to learn from everyone. I've pasted a live link. Go to our website and explore some of the live examples, IQ3 examples. We're going to be in Chicago next week at Automate. So if you'd like to come and see, check out some cool XR headsets and play around with some live examples, manufacturing examples, please come and find us at Automate next week in Chicago. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Caroline.
I was just going to say, I think.
I'm sorry,
what
I totally skipped Andrew. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, you have. I was
That's all
waiting and
right.
waiting. Go
You
ahead,
know,
Andrew.
I figured you went first. Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
No problem. I mean, I just want to thank everyone for coming. I thank you all for your interest in this. I mean, I want to sort of reiterate what I said in the talent portion, is that this field, I mean, we're talking about manufacturing, but people of many different of educational backgrounds, of many different perspectives, can really apply to this type of application. I mean, like I said, you could be game development, but some training for manufacturing is gamified in order to get scores for operators and things like that. So there's a lot of different opportunities in this field to apply it towards manufacturing or any other application in VR and AR. So yeah, so just I keep thinking about different ways to apply it, and that's an excellent thing, I think.
All right, sorry about that. Go ahead, Caroline.
In the security space, we used to say something that basically says shift left. And I think what I hear tonight is the shift left is when you're developing anything that you really have to connect across your teams. And I think that's so true today, even across the manufacturing space. So I think that's really exciting. And then I also think that the fact that there are so many success stories, there's a lot we read in the news, and you'll see even Forrester and Deloitte talking about how manufacturers shrinking and there's a lot of doom and gloom. But I do think that these technologies actually give people use cases and value so that they can then go forward with things that they would otherwise feel that they couldn't. So I'm pretty excited by that. Thanks.
All right. And first of all, before I get to my final statement, I do want to say thank you quickly to all of our panelists for being here, both virtual and live. Thank you for giving them a round of applause. All right, Shelly, at this point, I'm going to ask you to give me that center screen back. And so the last thing I'll say, a lot of people have iterated on this to get to Ibrahim's point. First of all, I want to say I'm kind of shocked. Like, AI has been massively featured at almost every event we've had for the last several months, and it was really talked about tonight very, very briefly, if at all. So thank you for that. The reason I actually bring that up as the person who's like all excited about the fact that it's not one of the major topics is I've been saying for a long time, obviously AI is going to be a huge factor in things that are moving forward. AR, VR, immersive technology, this is the interface. This is how you're going to interact with computing. I mean, you can say in the future, but honestly in the present. I spend, I will say on average, I'd say probably at least an hour a day, an hour and a half to 2 hours a day in VR at this point. I was challenged 7 years ago. Someone told me you can't program for 6 hours in VR. I programmed for 10 that day. It's like, this is technology that will work. And this is the computing interface of the future. So that's where this technology is going. And so, yeah, because of that, it is still, oddly enough, very early days. This is a massive growth opportunity. It's where things are going to go. But with that, I will say thank you once again to our presenters. You guys can turn off your microphones and leave the stage if you'd like. I already kicked Shelly off the screen. And we do have a couple more things to talk about. And this one is one that we don't talk about much here, or at least we've been skimming over it in the past, but we do have to talk about it a little bit. Plain and simply, nobody likes asking for money. We don't. We're no exception to that. We also hate having to ask for money, but we produce this program in a nonprofit space, and we're required to convince you of the value of the program. We're believers that this type of programming ought to remain free and be available to everybody, which we believe will help build and strengthen this XR community that we've just explained is massively growing. So the first thing I'll ask you is to consider this question. Did you find value in what you heard tonight? Did you find value in what you've seen, what we've delivered for you? The value can come from the fact that you learned something. It can come because you met somebody new. Maybe you're making a business decision, or you got to experience something new via a demonstration. Or honestly, for some of you, this might just be your introduction into immersive technology. The next thing I would like you to consider is the work that we put into producing this event. It's something that we're committed to. We've been doing it for years. We are stubborn enough to continue providing this program via 3 different platforms, live here in Chicago, in a virtual environment, and on the live stream. And we know that the value doesn't always necessarily equate to dollars and cents. So if you can, please consider making a donation to the program. Any amount is greatly appreciated. I do want to call out John Eichart, who was one of the few people who actually paid for a $100 ticket to the event. And I don't know if he's even here in the room. He might not have made it tonight, but he still supported the event that way. So thank you for that. But with that, any amount is appreciated. We have swag at the front desk that we give away at certain levels of donations. From a microfiber cloth to a sticker, a coffee mug, or even an NFC business card that we will customize to have your business card. But that said, if you can't afford to support us, that's fine. Or if you're still on the fence about the value of the programming, we can still use your help in other ways. Sharing the word. We have, on average, prior to the pandemic, we were pulling 75 to 150 people to each of these events. Live events have changed a bit since the pandemic, and it's kind of weird getting the word out again. But you can help us by looking at our social media pages. I'll have all of our tags on the next page. Like our pages, follow our pages, comment on them, share the posts. That gets the word out. We are seeing the audience get more consistent, growing. It's a great thing. We want to accelerate that a little bit more because there is a lot of value in the technology and what we're providing tonight. So please consider donating if you can. This is the QR codes directly to our donation link. If you can't donate, please follow our socials. Again, I'll have those up in 2 seconds. I'll leave them up for a few moments, but ultimately anything it's at VRA or Chicago on almost every platform. And with that, I do want to talk about our next upcoming events. So June 5th, we're going to get back to something else that we did prior to the pandemic, which we are bringing back. We haven't done it since the pandemic. And this is what we're going to call hands-on demo day. There will be no stage. If you're here in the physical space, there is going to be no stage. There's going to be no chairs. The entire room will be surrounded with essentially booths. And I can assure you, you have not seen this immersive technology under the same roof at the same time. We have some who are not even going to be making it out to AWE. We will have a cave system here, potentially. We will have an augmented reality laptop that does not require glasses. We're going to have Vive XR Elite, Apple Vision Pro, Quest 2, 3. There's going to be a whole lot of demonstrations. Like I said, stuff you're not going to see assembled in another space. And it is here for you to try. It is here for you to basically get your hands on it, get your eyes on it, play with it, try it. That'll happen on June 5th here. And for those of you in the virtual audience who join us or on the live stream, everybody who is here demonstrating live in the space, we are going to basically set up an opportunity for them to come and speak to you directly for about 5-minute presentation, 5 more minutes for you to ask them questions. And so everyone who's going to be here demonstrating live, this will be an actual event that we stream into the virtual space and to our live stream as well. That's taking place on June 5th here at 1871. July 17th, we're going to be doing a social event, location to be determined. Follow our socials. They're all listed here if you want to find out where we're doing that. And then on August 7th, we will be doing the topic of hospitality and tourism, and that will be taking place at 2112. So with that, those are our upcoming events. We hope to see you. Thank you again for joining us. Yep.
Matt, I have a question. Can you post the link to your donate? I can't scan the QR code. I'm on my laptop. So, and I could not find. By the way, I cannot find it on your website. So,
I will throw it in the chat in just a moment. Okay. Honestly, I don't know it off the top of my head, so I will throw it in the chat in just a moment. I have to go look it up. But that said, these are our upcoming events. The last thing I'm going to throw the slide up here is the NFT. I will leave that up for the duration so people can scan it in the virtual space, and anyone in the physical space who wants to collect the NFT. That'll be up. Once again, I want to thank Caroline for hosting virtually. I want to thank our team who basically we had a lot of last minute volunteers who kind of came in and helped some stuff tonight. So that was great. Thank you very much, Andy, Eric in particular, Matt as always back there. And I almost forgot to mention, we have M-Hub in the space. So for those of you who are not familiar with Chicago's M-Hub, which is Chicago's manufacturing accelerator, right now we're in 1871, which is the technology incubator. We mentioned 2112, which is the creative technology incubator. M-Hub is the manufacturing incubator and accelerator here in Chicago. So please stop by at the table over there and say hi to M-Hub. But with that said, here's our NFT. Thanks again, everybody. And I will throw the link for donation in the chat in frame in just a moment. Thanks, everybody. We can stop the live stream. We can stop the recording.